What's next for Donald Trump? After the US president confirmed America will effectively oversee Venezuela until what he calls a safe, proper, and judicious transition is secured, questions are mounting over where Washington's attention turns next. And there are growing suggestions this may only be the beginning. Following US strikes and the capture of the Venezuelan leader and his wife, speaking to reporters, Mr. Trump has now said, "Operation Colombia sounds good to me," a remark that immediately put Venezuela's neighbor on high alert.
And that's Venezuela is very sick. Colombia is very sick too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
What does that mean? He's not going to be doing it very long?
He's not doing it very long. He has cocaine mills and cocaine factories. He's not going to be doing it very long.
So there will be an operation by the U.S. and
it sounds good to me. Yeah. You know why? Because they kill a lot of people. Yeah.
Colombia is widely regarded as the epicenter of the world's cocaine supply. But any US action there would likely look very different to Venezuela. The American and Colombian militaries have long-standing ties, regularly working together on counter-narcotics and security operations. Some analysts believe Mr. Trump's comments may be aimed less at military action and more at Colombia's upcoming elections, where a right-wing candidate is tipped to defeat President Petro. Further north, alarm bells may also be ringing in Cuba. A longtime ally of Venezuela and of Russia, Cuba has been under US sanctions since its communist revolution in 1959. Mr. Trump says Cuba's economy is already in tatters and warns it will deteriorate further now that Nicolas Maduro has been removed from power, cutting off heavily subsidized Venezuelan oil.
Secretary Rubio mentioned Cuba yesterday in his remarks. Does the U.S. have a plan to do?
Well, Cuba always survived because of Venezuela. Now they won't have that money coming in. They won't have the income coming in. You know, a lot of Cubans were killed yesterday. You know that. A lot of Cubans were killed.
Do you know how many?
The bodyguards. No, they're looking, but there was a lot of death on the other side. No death on our side. That Cuba is ready to fall. You know?
Yes.
Cuba looks like it's ready to fall. I don't know if they're going to hold out. But Cuba now has no income. They got all of their income from Venezuela, from the Venezuelan oil. They're not getting any of it. And Cuba literally is ready to fall. And you have a lot of great Cuban Americans that are going to be very happy about this.
Are you considering U.S. action in Cuba?
We're not. I think it's just going to fall. I don't think we need any action. It looks like it's going down. It's going down for the count. You ever watch a fight?
I have.
They go down for the count. And Cuba looks like it's going down. What do you think, Howard?
This interruption is brought to you by ExpressVPN and their New Year deal. New Year, new VPN, and a huge saving of up to 80% if you act now. You're busy planning how to get in shape, but the hackers are planning how to get into your accounts. ExpressVPN locks down your connection so you can start the year protecting your data. This offer ends on the 7th of January, so scan the QR code or click the link in the description now.
Then there is Mexico. Following the Venezuelan operation, Mr. Trump made comments widely interpreted as hinting at possible future action there too.
Yeah, you were just talking about the land, but it sounded like
And by the way, you have to do something with Mexico. Mexico has to get their act together because they're pouring through Mexico, and we're going to have to do something. We'd love Mexico to do it. They're capable of doing it. But unfortunately, the cartels are very strong in Mexico.
I remember one time you actually, speaking of Mexico, I asked you about Claudia Sheinbaum, and you told me at one point you had offered to send U.S. troops into Mexico to combat drug trafficking there. Is that something you have spoken to her about?
I think she's a terrific person. I would say every single time I talk to her, I offered to send troops.
And she's just not willing?
She's concerned. She's a little afraid. The cartels are running Mexico. Whether you like it or not, it's not nice to say, but the cartels are running Mexico.
Once again, the focus was on drug trafficking, a reoccurring justification for tougher US intervention. But the president's ambitions are not limited to the Americas. Mr. Trump has revived his proposal to annex Greenland, arguing it is essential from the standpoint of national security.
I will say this about Greenland. We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And Denmark is not going to be able to do it, I can tell you.
I think it's a big
You know what Denmark did recently to boost up security in Greenland? They added one more dog sled. It's true. They thought that was a great move. I just say this. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And the European Union needs us to have it. And they know that.
He has repeatedly pointed to the island's strategic military location and vast mineral resources. Greenland's Prime Minister has firmly rejected the idea, saying that's enough now and calling US control of the territory a fantasy. And then there is Iran. The country is in turmoil, rocked by mass protests against the Islamic Republic, with its economy already under severe strain. Deaths and arrests have been reported as security forces clash violently with demonstrators. Mr. Trump has warned that the United States could intervene if protesters are met with further violence.
There's been protesters killed in Iran. You said we were locked and loaded, ready to go. What is the line there for when the U.S. is going to get involved in those protests?
We'll take a look. We're watching it very closely. If they start killing people like they have in the past, I think they're going to get hit very hard by the United States.
Last year, US bombers were involved in strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has responded defiantly, insisting the country will not yield to the enemy. From South America to the Middle East, from regime change to territorial expansion, the question now isn't whether Donald Trump will act again, but more likely, where next.
Let's speak with the Deputy Director for Latin America International as the International Crisis Group, Elizabeth Dickinson. Elizabeth, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. What's the international community's position on Donald Trump's action? On the one hand, of course, he, if you like, decapitates Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, China, America's foes in South America. But it was an audacious kidnap of Maduro, now in a Manhattan court.
The region, which I think has been very divided. We have to first start with the fact that very few countries in Latin America had recognized the government of Nicolás Maduro because he did lose an election in 2024 and had refused to recognize the results of that vote. So while I think there is some relief that he is out, I think there is great concern and consternation across Latin America for the way that it happened. And the message that this has sent across the region and really the entire Western Hemisphere is that for those leaders who are not on board with Trump's agenda, they know that they can face the risk of this sort of military action. I think that already that coercive diplomacy is reshaping the way the region is thinking about their ties with the United States. Countries that are much closer to Washington have stayed silent or even expressed support for this operation, whereas countries such as Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, Uruguay, Chile have come out and said very strongly that they are in favor of non-intervention and democratic processes.
OK, Elizabeth Dickinson, I hope we can hear you there. You cut off for me. I wanted to ask you about, a lot of people now are suddenly getting hot under the collar about international law, but they were kept pretty quiet when Maduro simply ignored the fact he lost the presidential election. They kept pretty quiet about the fact he was inviting China, Iran, Russia, Hezbollah and Hamas onto Venezuelan soil. And don't forget, it was the Biden regime that put a $25 million reward out for to remove him from power.
Well, there has been bipartisan support, I think, for the policy to hold free and fair elections and see a political transition in Venezuela. But here's the interesting thing about what has happened. Maduro and his wife have been removed, but the entire rest of the regime, including the hardliners who were behind orchestrating flawed elections and cracking down on the opposition, remain in power. So essentially what has happened is the U.S., although it has carried out an operation that looks like regime change, they have not changed the regime. And I think there are clear questions about whether really we're going to see a change in behavior from authorities in Caracas.
OK, Elizabeth Dickinson, thank you very much for joining us today and giving us your expertise. I thank you for that, and a Happy New Year to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on GB News.